Good evening. Good evening. This is Rashard Tortorello, and I'm with Kerry Rails tonight on a special Patriot Sentinel podcast sponsored by City News OKC and City News America. We have our great friend, Jon Echols, who, if you don't know that name by now, is running for Attorney General of the great state of Oklahoma. Jon, welcome to the show tonight. Glad to have you.
Rashard, Carey, thanks so much for having me on. I'm super excited about it.
Yeah, you know what? So before the show, you told us you had a special letter from the NRA. Can we just start with that first?
I did. I just got notification that I am going to be given the Defender of Freedom Award by the NRA, the National Rifle Association. That's the highest award they give an elected official. So I'm really honored, really excited.
That is amazing. I am so glad. I'm happy for you. Look, for the short time, actually, I don't think it's short. I've known you for like 4 or 5 years now. You have impressed the heck out of me, if I can say that. You've been there. You have been on the stage at our conventions. You've been everywhere. And I can say that you are a quality conservative. And that's who we need now in times like this. We need a good guy in the Attorney General's office to lead Oklahoma into the future. So, what inspired you to run for Attorney General after, being term limited? I mean, why would you do this?
What inspired me to run for Attorney General is really the same thing that inspired me to run for office. Rashard, you know this. I'm like you and Kerry. I didn't come from a political family. I wasn't connected. I ran for office because I care about this state. I care about my kids' future, your kids' future, the future of this state. And I felt like after serving 12 years in the Oklahoma House of Representatives, the office of Attorney General is that office that can really help the people. I would get so frustrated when I would get calls from constituents needing help from state agencies when we'd already passed the law. Well, that's what the Office of Attorney General can do, and it can
Right.
really make a difference.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you were the longest serving House Majority Floor Leader in Oklahoma's history. What unfinished business do you hope to carry into the AG's office, if anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a couple things that I hope to carry in. One, I hope to help enforce the law. I hope what I saw so often from constituents dealing with state agencies is we needed someone to stand up for them, stand up for the
Right.
taxpayers, and frankly, to stand up for the citizens as the chief law enforcement officer for the state of Oklahoma, which was what the Attorney General does.
Right.
Both that law enforcement background and that conservative background, standing up for taxpayers.
Right.
Jon, we've had a lot of people ask, what does the Attorney General do? All the different processes that you would be assuming. How is your leadership style going to differ from those from the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Attorney General, for those watching, because I get asked that question a lot, what is the Attorney General?
Right.
The Attorney General is the chief lawyer for the state of Oklahoma, both the chief prosecutor, chief criminal lawyer, but also the chief civil lawyer. So my style, my leadership style, anyone that's seen me on TV knows, and I like to say there's 7 years worth of tape on me,
Right.
8 years on Your Vote Counts.
Right.
Everything I'm telling you, I've said on TV. I'm a deal maker, and I'm a consensus builder. What some people don't know, though, is I was also known as a fierce debater on the House floor. When it comes time to strap it up and fight, I was the guy that did that.
Right.
So my leadership style is still going to be someone. I'll be the most conservative, unashamedly. I'll be the most conservative Attorney General we've ever had in the state, and I make no bones about that.
Good.
But also as 8 years, well, thank you. But also with 8 years as floor leader, I come in knowing where the bodies are buried and how state government works.
Wow. Is that a threat to the status quo, or is
Yes.
that a benefit for the people of Oklahoma, for the constituents?
Yes. My good friend Trace Savage with NonDoc had a great line that I was so proud of. I was grilling a director head on the Loft Committee, and Trace wrote in his article, every director deserves to be grilled by Echols at least once. I was really proud because I was known as a bulldog for taxpayer dollars. Where at my core, I'm a deal maker. I'm a nice guy. I want it to work, but we all do better when government is conservative and it's run for the people with their best interests at heart.
Absolutely. Trump's administration is looking seriously and have been at the border. we've got to stop the flow of illegals, but more importantly, fentanyl. So, your campaign emphasizes the fentanyl crisis. So, what can the Attorney General's office realistically do about this fight? And how soon, when you are in office, can we expect to see
Love
results?
that question. We are campaigning on, we are going to get control of the fentanyl crisis. So directly answer your question, I'm going to have a fentanyl task force whose job is to go
Right.
after fentanyl on the streets, is going to be after going the illegal aliens that are flooding into this country from both mainland China and up from the Mexican border from Mexico that are bringing this scourge to our streets. And we're going to go after it. Within my first year in office, we're actually going to get a hold of how many fentanyl deaths we have in Oklahoma. We don't even have that information. After
Mm,
that, we are going to be aggressively attacking those at the top. You can't bust enough street level dealers to deal with this fentanyl situation. We are going to be busting the higher ups that are flooding across the border. And to prove that
right.
we're willing to do that, I was the member that carried, talk about supporting President Trump and taking rid of illegal aliens. I was the one that carried the bill that made being an illegal alien in Oklahoma against state law. So now we can support
Wow.
President Trump in that effort.
He's going to need all our help, and I'm sure he's looking at Oklahoma and all our legislative leaders for that help. Carrie, you have any questions? You got a follow up with
Sure.
this?
So, with the AG, there's a lot that lands on your plate where we've had questions on criminal justice, DAs, from sheriffs, from all different kinds of aspects of things that'll land on your plate. How you said you're every prosecutor pretty much. So in that is hairy, right? To have a DA on your desk saying, okay, we have problems with this DA or we have problems with this political figure. How are they looked at separately from just a common voter who may break the law versus a DA that might break the law?
Boy, that's such a great question. What I want people to know about me will answer that. I said it earlier. I don't come from the political or social elite. As a matter of fact, I'm first generation from poverty. My parents both grew up dirt poor in South Oklahoma City. Most people don't know that. My mom who's passed away from breast cancer, was the first in her family to
Mm,
ever go to college. What I will
mm,
say is under my administration, everyone will be treated the same, exactly the way I was treated. I don't care if you are from the richest area of Nichols Hills or South Tulsa, or you're a poor kid from Southwest Oklahoma City like my mom and dad. We
right.
are treating everyone the same. The only exception would be if you're in the political class. Frankly, I'm going to treat you harsher because you've been
Good.
given that public trust. People have put their faith in you. So absolutely, there will be no quarter, and what we will do is follow the law, and that's the promise I make as I go throughout the state.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's a good, I like that
I do too.
response because we were elected officials. You were,
We
and I
were.
was, and our constituents hold us up to a higher standard. But more importantly, we hold each other up to a higher standard. And I get so frustrated when I look at my peers and say, I can't believe you did that. I can't believe, that actually happened on our watch. But, you know, Patrick McGigan, one of my editors at the City Sentinel, now the City News OKC, he is big on criminal justice reform in Oklahoma, and I'm sure he would like this answer. What's your take on the state of Oklahoma's criminal justice system? Are there any areas you'd reform or reinforce?
Oh, well, absolutely. Yes, there are some areas I would reform and reinforce. No, number one, I'm known for being smart on crime. I'm tough on the crimes you need to be tough on. One of the areas I'm
Right,
going to hit is domestic violence. I'm a 4-time domestic violence coalition legislator of the year. I tackled the backlog in SANE exams, the rape exam kits. I also made domestic
right,
violence by strangulation a felony in the state of Oklahoma.
Wow.
We also have to be
right,
smart on crime, though. We have to make sure we're providing the right mental health services so we don't lock up more people than anyone else in the world, which is what we did at one point. We've got to be able to strike that balance. So I think President Trump has a great line that I've been stealing, but I'm going to give him credit. The lawful few should not be allowed to terrorize. I'm sorry, the lawless few should not be allowed to terrorize the lawful many. Meaning,
I like
when
that.
we're going after people that are continually breaking the law, we're going to hold them
right.
accountable. We're going to be smart on that
Right.
and understand, is this someone that needs mental health services? Is this someone that needs additional treatment? We're not going to leave them out on the street, which is what we're struggling with, by the way, with the scourge of homelessness. Instead,
Right.
we're going to put them in facilities where they can have the help that they need.
Awesome. Awesome. Carrie?
So, Oklahoma, we're a states' right state, right? Oklahomans love it, and we love the power we hold by being a states' right state. But sometimes the federal government can roll out things our state does or may not agree with. How do you want to handle that as AG?
I'm a firm believer in the 10th Amendment, and I am a firm believer in holding the government, the federal government, to its limited powers. We are a republic of states that came together, and any power not specifically given to the federal government is reserved for the states, and I will hold the federal government accountable. Now, in the age of President Trump, it's a little different. In the age of Biden, a good Republican attorney general goes to bed and says, "How can I sue the federal government today?" and wake up the next morning and does it. That's what they do. In the age of
Right.
President Trump, what we need to be doing is helping President Trump as he protects all of us against the deep state. He
Yes.
has to deal with an out of reach federal bureaucracy, just like we do, just like we're dealing with. So we will continue to push back and support the president in ways as he pushes back against the bureaucracy in Washington. And I have a long history of doing that.
Awesome. As someone with business experience, how would you balance enforcement with creating a fair regulatory environment for Oklahoma businesses?
Yeah, I have a strong business background. I've started numerous businesses, employed thousands of Oklahomans, in addition to my legal background. I love talking about a medical staffing company. This is the situation I use. One of my first healthcare business was a medical staffing company that staffed nursing homes and assisted livings. I followed the law. The law is I paid my employees W-2 wages. About every couple of years, I'd have a fly-by-night entity that would show up and they would pay their employees 1099 wages. Shockingly, they would beat my price by 17%. That's the amount that you pay in order for your employees to make sure they're taken care of with W-2 wages. What frustrated
Right.
me is I just wanted state government to go enforce the law. Don't put my competitors out of business, but do what's
Right.
right
Right.
to enforce the law. As Attorney General, that is the mindset I'm going to bring in. If we have good rules, we need to enforce them. If we are not going to enforce them, we need to get rid of them. So legitimate businesses aren't playing by another set of rules. The other thing I will say is this time of businesses taking advantage of the state of Oklahoma, that's going to stop. We're seeing time after time of either the state of Oklahoma violating the Public Bid Act or some
Right.
super connected political donor taking advantage of the state. Now, we've started prosecuting some of those, and I'm going to continue that trend. If you have taxpayer dollars, you're going to play by the rules.
Good.
Good.
Well, Jon, as you know, we just moved my 90 and 89-year-old grandparents back from Arizona to Oklahoma. And I have a good banker friend that was telling me, I can't even remember how many millions of dollars in just January were taken in elder fraud, the scams that they can't get back. And his father was victim of elder fraud to the point where he had to go to another state and move him in with him because all his money was gone and they couldn't get it back. This is a big problem that is going to take a lot of people to solve. But how do you think we start peeling back those layers to stop the elder fraud?
Yeah, Carrie, I do know, and I'm so proud of what you're doing for your grandparents. I mean, you know our story. My mom and dad lived with us when they needed that help. And first, thank you, and I mean that sincerely. And then here's what we need to do. As floor leader of the House of Representatives, we took on big tech on the House, and we continue to take on big tech. And as your Attorney General, I will continue to do that. What has happened is we have this out of control elder fraud going on specifically through our phones. Everyone watching this has gotten a text message that said they're with the Turnpike Authority, so you need to pay them.
Right.
So to be clear, the Turnpike Authority will never text you. That will never happen. That is always fraud.
I almost paid it once.
And imagine our elderly. I had to stop some of my wife's family from doing it because it's so confusing. We need to be
Yeah.
actively going, and if we have to, I will continue to go after big tech. not just for what they do with our data, which I think violates the law, and I'm coming after them, but also how we stop this elder fraud that right now is being used through our cell phones. That's how they're getting these people, and it's really sad, and we're going to tackle it.
Great. That's great.
Maybe we should get all the old folks off Facebook. That'll be a good start.
Social media is responsible for the downfall of Western society.
Or Life 360, right?
Back in our day, they kick us out of the house, right? Don't come back until like 5 o'clock and until it's dinner time, and then we have the parent network, right? And if you did anything wrong, call your mom, call your dad. I grew up on a military base, and it was bad enough getting calls from mother to mother, but when your dad and the commander are friends, you don't want that phone call either.
You don't, but that's the best way. It's not big nanny government. It's the family. I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about, Rashard. That's the best way that's how we're going to save society. It's not going to be government.
It is never government. It is that family network, and all three of us grew up in that family network. We all have similar backgrounds. I came. My parents, they were well-to-do, but for the most part, I never ran. I never thought about running for political office until the insanity in Norman in 2020, when our city council thought it was a good idea to defund the police for something that happened 2,500 miles north of us. And so that was the only reason why I got involved in politics, reluctantly. But at the end of the day, it was about the family environment that we created with not just Republicans, but some Democrats, the police. We all share a kinship when you were in the uniform. And so you're right. I mean, so it is family. And, I would kick my kids out and say, don't come back until 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. But we're in Oklahoma and things are different. So different times. And I wish we can go back to that. But let's get to tribal relations and sovereignty. Oklahoma's tribes, or the compact, we've had tribal compact and sovereignty issues that have led to legal conflicts. How would you work to build better relationships with tribal governments?
I'm going to start from the proposition that our tribal partners, they're all Oklahomans. At the end of the day, we rise or fall together. We have to reestablish those quality relationships. And this is a relatively new phenomenon. We can reestablish those quality relationships. I'm thankful for what the tribes bring to the state of Oklahoma, and I have a long-standing policy of being able to work with them. And I think that's going to carry us over into the future. We have some struggles that we need to work through with McGirt, with some other things. But as your next attorney general, what I want is more compacts, less lawsuits.
Agreed. Now, you mentioned McGirt. It was a big issue in the CD4 race for Congress. So I'm not a big fan of McGirt. I think that was the biggest mistake that could have been levied on the state of Oklahoma. But put on your attorney general hat, or put on your legislative hat. What can we do to lessen the effects here at the state level?
That's right.
Which is a bad
decision. But anyone that tells you they're going to, quote unquote, overrule McGirt, only the Supreme Court can do that. So that we have what we have. What we have to do is get rid of this patchwork of law enforcement, and we have to get it all back together. So there's two ways to do that. We either work together and strike a deal that we can all live with, or win these never-ending cycle of lawsuits. What I want to do is to bring law enforcement and our tribal partners together and find a way to compact around these issues. If we have to have lawsuits, we have to have lawsuits. But that's the secondary option. The primary option, and part of the reason, by the way, why I'm endorsed now by 25 sheriffs in the state of Oklahoma. I have 25 sheriff endorsements, the FOP endorsement, the firefighter endorsement, and the retired firefighter endorsement, because what we all know is together, public safety is what matters most. If you don't have public safety, you don't have anything else. Nothing else matters. And that's my campaign slogan is a safer, freer, stronger Oklahoma. There's a reason I start with safer, because safety is what's number one.
Absolutely. Carrie?
Back to safety and businesses. We've talked a lot, you and I, about the healthcare authority and what we have found in the last year, shutting down rural independent medical providers, right? Without any laws or codified rules. And having to dig into it, there's a kangaroo court per se. There's no real judge, right? So there's no legal precedent that has to be set in these courts. How can you fix that at an AG?
That is such a great question. As you know, we've worked on this together and worked with several other physicians with no real authority, no rulemaking authority. Physicians are just randomly getting letters that they've had their Medicaid number canceled. That is a physician death spiral for that to happen, because that is now in another life. When I graduated first in my law school class, did healthcare law for a while, I did physician credentialing. That's a big deal. And the state of Oklahoma was just doing it willy-nilly. What I'm going to do as Attorney General, so without commenting on this exact issue, because I'm probably going to look at it, but here's what I tell you where I'm looking at. We're going to follow the law. State agencies, and Justice Scalia has a great phrase. He says he's a slave to the law. What he means is he's bound to it. We are going to make sure these state agencies are not getting outside their authority. Because if the legislature gets outside of their authority, you can vote them out. You vote for somebody new. You get them out of there. When these agencies go outside their authority, your only hope is the taxpayer's lawyer, and that's the Attorney General.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Going back, there's a couple questions floating in here. Somebody wanted to ask, do you support renegotiating compacts in areas like gaming, tobacco, or defending the current legal status quo?
That's a good question. So we can renegotiate compacts when we can. So the gaming compact has already been extended for another 10 years. So that won't come back up till afterwards. Now, I do support continuing the compact process on things like tobacco, or I would renegotiate the hunting compact. I think that was a good deal for the state. It was a good deal for the tribes. The answer always is meeting from that point of mutual respect, where we're trying to find what is best for the state of Oklahoma and for our tribal partners. It's a win-win scenario. That's what we're looking for in compacts. And I support the compacting process. I think we need more of them, not less of them.
Agreed. Now I got a couple of other questions coming in. Carrie, did you have a question to follow up on that?
Ask those listener questions.
Okay. So these are I'm going to treat these as opinion questions. So state question 837, the open primary question that they're held up in court right now. But as soon as that court challenge for them is overridden or is tossed out, they plan to be gathering signatures. Are you familiar with the open primary state question? So what is your opinion? So Republicans, the majority of the ones we've spoken to, Carrie and I had a podcast a couple of weeks about this. What is your opinion about state question?
Yeah, don't California
837.
Don't California my Oklahoma. That's my opinion. like I coined that phrase on Your Vote Counts, and I was very pleased. My friends at OCPA, and I was very pleased that they used it in their article, which I love. It's horrific. The Democrats can't win on ideas, so they're trying to change the system. So if you want to win on ideas, win in the marketplace ideas. And I would tell the viewers at home, had that been the law, Kevin Stitt would not be governor, because the two people who get the most votes were Democrats. So
exactly, so we are crisscrossing Oklahoma, myself and Wendy Dial, and we're going to county, talking to the GOP, talking to OK2A, and talking to the conservative groups about the state question 837. Some know about it, many don't. And the question I ask after she gives her talk and before I start mine is that which makes sense now that you understand what this does. And I just put one example, like don't California my Oklahoma, and they totally get it. Or so we were working with OCPA, and that was a terrific article they wrote. But I think more people need to be aware of the dangers of 837, because if 837 was in effect today or a year and a half ago, the two people we had to choose to vote on would be people like Tampon Tim and Kamala Harris. I mean, it's meant to dilute the Republican vote or allow them to choose our Republican candidate for us. Okay, and so we
conservatives like me. I mean, who the voters want. Well, like us, like you all, like all of us, conservatives, like the three of us on this podcast, what they're wanting to have is to make sure none of us can hold office. They're wanting to make sure that they dilute that vote. And what frustrates me is, again, if you want to get Democrats elected, get a better message. Get something the citizens agree with.
Exactly. And if you want to vote in our primary, change your affiliation,
Become a Republican. We will welcome you with open arms. It's a big party.
Exactly. That's exactly. We need to do that. Ronald Reagan, his Big Ten idea, and Trump proved it.
Yes.
Look, we people like this conversation we're having. This is probably one of the most important conversations. Is that Trump proved the 837 supporters wrong. He got the biggest increase in white men votes, in black, Hispanics, women came out, Democrats came out to vote for him. So nobody's disenfranchised. I think the only people that think their votes don't matter in November are the ones that their representatives don't return their phone calls or their text messages or emails. I made a habit, I'm sure you did too, of returning every text, every phone call, every email, regardless if you voted for me or not. So as Attorney General, will you receive and respond to questions or issues from Democrats and independents that may not have voted for you, but you are their Attorney General?
Absolutely, because as Attorney General, that office will not belong to me. That office belongs to the citizens of the state of Oklahoma, all 4.2 million of them, not the Republicans, all 4.2 million Oklahomans. You are blessed to be able to represent anyone, and that's how I was as floor leader, and that's what we were able to do during my time in the Oklahoma House of Representatives. We as a body, if it was a good idea, it was a good idea. It didn't matter who came up with it, because it's not about us. It's about the people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
So not to digress, I feel like the turnpike has been beaten like a dead horse.
Yes.
But we've had this question come up a lot, and there's a lot of confusion in Cleveland County in particular. Our county commissioners are under fire as if they can do anything with the turnpike, right? They can't make them come, they can't make them leave. It's not their ability. And on coupled with that, digging into those layers, it was astounding to find out investing in the turnpike, I can make tax-free income. Why do you think people in Oklahoma are not aware that even though it's coming, we can't make it leave or make them come, that they have an opportunity to generate tax-free income from the investments they offer?
I will tell you here's how I'll answer that question. One of the things I found out as a freshman, you want the lobbyists to descend on you like vultures. Whisper the word turnpike. Just whisper it. You don't even have to. Just whisper it. And one of the things you found out is you have this nebulous agency out there that we have really no control over in the legislature, which makes absolutely no sense. We have no control over where it goes. And even then, with my last year in the legislature, which was 2 years ago, like this is 2 sessions ago, my last year, we passed a bill to audit the turnpike. Danny Sterling, Representative Sterling, passed that bill. That was a House bill. It's still not done. I don't understand the power of the turnpikes that they have. Now, and to be clear, we need roads. We have to have roads. That's a hard statement. That's a hard statement that people don't want to hear. But what we have to do it in a way that takes away as few homes as possible. And we have to do it in an open and transparent manner. And that's not what's going on. I went after the turnpikes on TV too, when they raised their rates without saying anything, this massive raise, and they just throw it out there. But it's because their political power is pretty incredible. And we need to do something to either just stop lying to the citizens, either, put some sunlight on this. If they're never going to make them free, just stop pretending like they are, like stop the lie and put sunlight out on the Turnpike Authority.
I think the folks in my old district would welcome that answer. 441 parcels. I mean, that's probably the biggest take for a road in years. And I have to, these folks are terrified. They may become the next homelessness in Norman if they don't get what their property is worth in their mind. So, we're close to being done. A couple questions here, and you got the last word. What does success look like for you in 4 years as Attorney General? And what should voters know about Jon Echols that they won't see in a press release?
I'll answer both those, and thank you. Here's what success looks like. Success looks like fentanyl deaths are going down in the state of Oklahoma. Success looks like we have done something with the illegal immigration, just absolutely crisis that's going on in the state of Oklahoma. Success looks like we're a safer Oklahoma and you feel safer in your homes, that you see law enforcement is supported. and that you see that prosecutions are happening for those that break the law. And finally, success looks like we are enforcing the law in our state agencies. So we, the people, have the government that we voted for through the laws. And what you won't see a lot in the press release about me that's a little bit different, I guess, would be my background and my faith. I married my high school sweetheart. She is the reason, her and my children are the reason that I got into politics, and we
Right.
continue to do that. This position of New York of Attorney General is my New York Yankees job. This
Wow.
is the highest calling that I want to do. I believe in protecting the citizens of this state, and it is real to me. And I would be honored to have your support and your vote.
Well, Carrie, do you have any last words?
You have my vote.
If I may be so bold, we don't usually do this, but I'm going to say that for as long as I've known you, you've always been a stand-up guy. I think Oklahoma would be served so great with you as Attorney General.
It would.
It would, and I think you can reach across the aisle and get those Democrat votes, those independent votes, and be truly the Attorney General for the state of Oklahoma. I think people want somebody in that seat who's fair, and like you said, the biggest thing that we caught on was that that seat, that office belongs to all 4 million Oklahomans. I don't think we've heard that in a candidate for this seat
Yeah.
in a while. Okay, so with that, I would like to say that you have our support and our endorsement for this position, because I think you're the man at the right time for the right job for the state of Oklahoma. So I want to thank you, Jon, for coming on today and sharing your vision, answering our questions. And I know you got to run to a next event, but those folks who are watching tonight or be watching the replay tomorrow, I want to thank you for watching the Patriot Sentinel. We are sponsored by City News OKC and City News America, and I want to thank my publisher Rick Grellner for making this happen tonight. And I wish all you all a good evening, good morning, and good day. And we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Vote for Jon.
Yes.
Hey, honored to be on, guys. Thank you.
Hold on,
Thank you.